this week in the podcast, we're going to go on to a really simple but key subject when it comes to sales and winning business, and that's the issue of budgets and how to deal with asking about a buyer's budget so that you don't spend your time chasing an opportunity that's never going to go anywhere. And by the way, this is one of the areas of sales and selling that I've made lots of mistakes in the past. It's one of the most frustrating parts of selling because you do loads of work and you do put lots of time and effort in and you feel that you've built a really great rapport with someone, everything's going well, but basically because you haven't asked or dealt with the budget question in the right way at the right time, what happens is you create a proposal or do all the other things and then you hear nothing, and basically it all goes to crap. And I want you to avoid that, and there are some simple things we can do to avoid that happening, which save our time and stop us from being in a position where we feel despondent and gutted when we lose or don't hear back from opportunities. And invariably, if you've ever been ghosted by a prospect, and ghosting is something that happens on a quite a regular basis, it happens mainly because budgets are different. What they thought versus what you thought. And if that issue of money hasn't been addressed well enough in the deal, it goes wrong. So let me start by talking a little bit about budgets and how this works. Invariably, there are, and I always used to say, if you ask anyone their budget, they'll generally never tell you. There are some people that will. There are some people that are quite open and honest about sharing information, invariably. But most people, if you ask them their budget outright, what is your budget, or how much do you want to pay for this service, or what would you like to invest to get this problem resolved? Most people are never going to say, oh, yes, well, in my head, I thought it's going to cost £1,000, okay? Or if they are telling you that, they're telling you that and they don't really mean it, because who rarely wants to tell someone, especially they don't know in the sales situation, this is everything that I've got to spend, and come and take what you want from me. It doesn't work, right? Buyers are cautious and coy about sharing budget information, mainly because they, A, have a perception of sales and business people that are going to take advantage of them, so they don't want to be taken advantage of. And B, because if you tell someone what those figures are, then you have this, thought process that someone's going to go right up to the, if it's £1,000 the budget, someone's going to go £995. So basically, even though the service or the product might only, cost £400, because you've told them that you're going to spend £1,000, they're thinking, well, I can make some extra money. It's human nature. It just happens, right? And by the way, I'm a salespeople. I love helping people, but, fundamentally, I believe this, and I've seen this. If someone tells me their budget for a service is £3,000 and I know I can do it, and that's maybe £1,000 more than I would charge, then I might say to them, okay, based on what you're asking for, yeah, I can do it for that figure. It's a simple, we're human beings. We're going to be that way. So if you say to someone, what's your budget? A, be prepared for them to give you a wrong answer, or B, they're going to tell you an answer that they're going to say, I'm not, and you probably get 90% of the time you'll get, I'm not able to share that information exactly with you, or I don't feel comfortable sharing that detail with you. And let me give you a story as to why it is important if we can try and find out a bit more, because it's really vital. So I worked with a couple of financial organisations, and a number of years ago I started doing some work with a company. And I said to them, I knew that financial services in the space, they're a bit more, they're about the return they get rather than necessarily the money they spend. And I put together a proposal, and I looked at the details of what I was going to do. And I asked some questions, but I hadn't asked enough of the range questions and the things we're going to talk about in a moment. And I put a proposal into them, and for 27k, I think it was, or £26,500 for a set of training sessions. And I was like, are they going to accept it? And I hadn't asked the questions as I should have done. I learn all the time. I make some mistakes. Anyway, they came back to me and said, yeah, great, we're going to work with you. I said, amazing, fantastic. Did the fist pump, brilliant. Yeah, no worries at all. We had 47 grand in our budget for this, therefore we, have come under, so we can do it. And I was like, oh my God. I've gone in at 26 and a half and there was 21k spare. And I was like, and I don't get me wrong, actually, as it turned out, we did some other training as well, which they used in the budget, so it was fine. But the point being is, if that would have been a service as a one-off, then I might have not got access to that full amount. Or I could have generated more from it as a business. And most people, like I say, do want to generate more. So look, if you ask outright, they're not going to tell you. What can you do? What can you do to find out you're in the right place, though? So here's a couple of ideas and techniques that you can use to try and do this. So a good example would be a comparison technique. So a comparison technique might be something where you say to someone, look, appreciate, you've got some thoughts around your budget. Thinking about it in relation to sort of like, if you're going in a hotel basis, how does your budget fit? Are we talking sort of 1 to 2 star, or are you looking for 4 to 5 star service? If someone sort of starts to say to you, well, no, we're looking for 4 to 5 star, then you generally would say, okay, great. Well, we know that 4 to 5 star is probably going to be at the more expensive end of something. So a good way to sort of try and get a sanity check of that is to ask a comparison technique like that. Another good thing you can do is to ask for previous budgets. So what you might want to do, by the way, I'm working on a proposal at the moment for a company where they're looking for some resource for my growth resourcing business. By the way, I've got a business in South Africa where we have people that make sales calls and get on the phone and have conversations with contacts. And basically I spoke to a company and talked to them about what they were looking to do, and obviously we had a conversation about what we did. And I said, tell me a bit more about what you're currently investing in this area at the moment, or when you've invested in this sort of area in the past. How's that work for you? Other people are able to say, oh yeah, typically we've invested between £2,000 and £4,000 a month in this service, depends on what's happening. So as a result of that, I then knew that what we offered was in that what I call the ballpark. It was in the range of where they were, because I'd asked for a previous budget on a previous project. So let's say you're implementing maybe some software or some other, we're selling, other goods or items. You might say, in the past, when you've invested in these sort of things, what sort of, figures, what sort of areas, figures have you committed to invest in this area, or how have you invested in this sort of stuff in the past? Give me some examples of other projects or things you've done and what those look like. And people might say, oh, we did this, and this in the past. Okay, and great. And what was the overall sort of value of that project? Oh, it was 100K. Okay, cool. So what you're trying to do is get a sense of whether they've done something like that in the past, which is then going to give you an indication that they're open to doing that in the future. So a previous budget is a really, really good way to do that. And another good way to be able to do this is to talk about commercial impact. So one of the things that I will often do in conversations is I'll sit down with someone and say, okay, talk to me through your average sale, your average value of sale. And they'll say, okay, well, typically we sell our services for, £25,000. Okay, and talk to me a little bit more about, how long that, that's the initial deal. What does it turn into a customer? Well, a customer then buys an additional sort of 50,000 with us. So, okay, so on average, a customer is worth sort of 75,000 to you. Yeah, okay. Okay, amazing. So, and how many of those normally do you bring in at the moment? Oh, well, we bring in, 3 per year. Okay, we bring in 3 per year. So around sort of 250K. And how many, and I might say to someone, and how many, leads you speak to? Oh, well, we speak to 20 people, but we only bring in 3. Okay, cool. So by the sound of things, if we could get, from those, additional 17 people, if we could get 2 people, 2 more companies to buy to generate an additional 150K of revenue, then how would you feel? Oh, I'd feel great. So how would you feel if you invested, or I could say, what would you feel is a good return to get that 150K? If you spent 20K, how would you feel? Oh, that would feel good. So I get a sense based upon the ROI or the return on investment. I will say to people, by the way, if you listen to this in the podcast and think, hey, I'd like James to come in and be a sales trainer and presenter for us, let's have a conversation. Got lots of courses and discussions. But I'll be honest with you, if you sell penny chews, or if you sell small items at low price and high volume, I'm probably not the best person for you. Being honest, I'd probably say to you, the reason being, because you'd need to sell. I know my value, I know what I do, and I know the return I provide to companies I work with, but you're probably going to need to sell a significant number of those to recoup the investment to work with me. Whereas if I work with software companies or if I work with in financial services, which is where I tend to do a lot of my work, and someone says, well, I know a customer can be worth £30,000 to us over the year. Okay, great. So if I can help you generate 5 more of those to generate 150K of revenue, what would you feel comfortable investing? Well, what would you think is fair? If I gave you 30 grand and if you gave me 30 grand and I turned it into 150 grand, is that good? Yeah. So then I've already established that that's the figure for what they're trying to do. So, look for the commercial impact, the commercial sort of ROI. The other way to do this is to actually find a champion in the business. So if you're working in a company or working in an environment, try and find a bit of background on what's happening. So again, if I'm working with a new company, I might use a contact that I've got or a person that I know or a person in that business for them to find out. Because sometimes those that hold the budgets won't tell you, but there are people that will know, oh, actually, I think we've allocated this for this project. Or they'll say to you, well, actually, we know that... our finance director has told that the company that there is resources to do this in this area, or budgets have been shared. People have had access to budgets, for example. So if you can find a champion that can give you the inside scoop, then that's another great thing to do. Now, sometimes champions won't know that, and you got to be careful because they're not just serving you; they're working for that company. But if you build a relationship with a champion, it's a great way to sort of get beneath the surface and find out really what they value. Or another, and this is probably the other way in which I tend to do this quite a lot, is to do what I would call a range or a rough estimate. A range is a better way to describe it. So a range might be, let's just say, for example, services for, to help come in and do a piece of work might be, for you guys as a company, might be, or a piece of software might be £5,000. So what you might say is, and obviously, it depends. If you've got one service that's only £5,000, then fair enough. But most companies can adjust things down. They can either do a bronze version that's a little bit less, or a silver version that's a bit more, and then a gold version, which is the full fat version. So what you might say is, let's say your silver version of service is 5,000, your bronze version is 3,000, and your gold version is 9,000. What you might say to someone is, you might say a question such as, typically, other organisations similar to yourself that are investing in this area are investing between £3,000 and £9,000 in this sort of project. How does that feel or sound to you? Now, that end bit I've just talked about, how does that feel and sound to you, is really critical, and you need to then watch the reaction they give you. But what you've then given them is a range from 3,000, your bronze offering, to 9,000, your gold offering, with the £5,000 being in the middle, which is sort of where you hope they'll go. And what you'll get with that conversation, that reaction, is you'll get a reaction from someone that is probably, and Chris Voss, who's a brilliant book, Never Split the Difference, talks around this. You'll get one of three reactions, which is that's okay. It's what I thought it'd be. I think it's okay, which is what he calls the 50-50, where they're not sure. They probably just need a bit of convincing, but it's in the rough area. You'll get a yes, that's fine, which they don't really mean. It's they're lying to you. It's just, it's a lot more than I thought. Or you'll go, yeah, no worries. That's definitely in line with what I'm thinking. We were expecting it to be 15,000, 20,000. So the point being is, watch the reaction that you get. I always say to people, when I try and talk about, figures like that, I will look at their body language. I'll look at their eyes. I'll look at the way in which they're approaching it. If I get I think it's, you sort of get this reaction it's a visceral reaction from people. It's an instant reaction. When they hear a number, they connect that with the figure they had in their head and they go, is that in line with what I thought? And sometimes our body language and the way we say things can give it away. If someone's not sure, I think that's fine. And I see this a lot. When I listen to sales calls, if a salesperson has asked a range question, and then literally I've heard the reaction, which is, that should be okay, which is basically code for, I'm not sure totally about that, or that's fine, no, that's okay, which is basically them saying no, it's not fine, and they don't want to tell you, because no one wants to say to you, or very few people want to say to you, probably 1 out of 10 people will say to you, no, that's way too expensive, I don't want to spend that amount of money. Some people aren't that direct. Most people are a bit more, they don't want a confrontation. So they'll just go, oh, okay, I think that's okay, rather than saying to your face, no, it's way more than I expected. So, but at least when you ask that question, and if you ask it in the right way, and I always talk about, asking questions in the right way, at the right time, in the right tone. If you ask the question in the right way, in the right tone, at the right time, then you are going to be in a position where you can get a sense back from that person as to whether it fits for them. And if it doesn't, so let's say, your service is 3, 5 or 7,000, and you say to them, typically clients are investing between 3 and 9,000, and they say, oh wow, well that's different to our budget. We had £1,000 put down for this. Then you've got two options. You can either go, well, I'm going to think here, I'm going to try and lower my price, which is what a lot of companies tend to do. And the problem around that is you then lower your value, and it then you feel inside, you get aggrieved that you're not charging your full figure for the deal, etc., etc. Or what you can say to someone is, hey, thanks for letting me know that. Appreciate, what makes you think it's worth that amount? Or what makes you think that, what's brought you to that figure is the figure that you want to use for this? And they can then explain what they're thinking. And if they're quite resolute, that's the figure, then you've got an option. You can either do the business at £1,000 and accept the consequences of that, or you can say, hey, look, from what you shared with me, I really appreciate it. I don't know if we're going to be able to help on that because you're looking for a service at £1,000 and typically we range between 3 and 9. So I think we're going to be a bit off on price and I don't want to waste your time. And what that will then do is actually put the other person into a position of, they'll either go, okay, great, no worries, thanks very much, and move on. I mean, that sometimes happens. Or they might say, well, we could increase the budget, we could make more money available or whatever else. In other words, if they like you and what you do in your service, they'll find the money for it. Or they might need to, to see, a great question I always use is, what would you need to see in order to feel it's worth investing, that amount in? And they can then share with you evidence and details or whatever they want to see from that point onwards. But the reality is, people will, if you ask that range question, it's a good way for you to then be able to react to respond to what people want to do. But just be careful and watch for the reactions of what people say, and don't have happy ears. Don't just sit there and go, oh, I think they've said yes. Does the yes they really say mean what they mean? Is it really mean yes, or is their tonality and their body language saying something but giving away something different? And it's really critical that you take this advice on board here, guys, because it's where a lot of deals go south. It's where a lot of deals fail because people don't hear what actually is being said. They hear the words, but they don't hear the tonality and the other aspects around it. So look, use that range question, or give, again, another way of doing it is a rough estimate. Rough estimate could be between sort of 3 and 5k. Again, rough estimate. And if you're not sure, if you don't want to, be in a position where you waste time, just say, look, I'm not totally sure. Need to do a few checks. Need to have a little look, but it could be between X and Y. Yeah, but again, I will always ask that question of how does that fit within your plans? How does that fit within your budgets? What were you expecting it to cost, or what are you expecting it to be? So ask those questions back as a result of it. So look, those are the messages to how to find out where a buyer's budget is. I hope this is sort of giving you some insight and been helpful. It is one of the biggest, trickiest areas of sales and selling. But the other key thing I will say, just to sort of finish off on this, is have the conversation and have it at the right time. Would I have that conversation? I worked with a legal company last year, and their people were asking the question around money within 10 minutes of having a conversation with someone. I was like, I think that's going to annoy people and put them off you rather than bring them closer to you. If someone asked me, can I afford it? What's my budget? After 10 minutes of meeting them, and I'd probably, it would turn me off them. It's a bit like going on a date and saying to the person on the date, do you want kids on the first date? It's like, there is a time and place to ask these questions. You don't want to waste too much time having conversations with people that aren't going to be a good fit. There's no point chasing an opportunity and in literally spending time and meetings and whatever else, and that person then not working with you. But don't always do it straight away. Give it, maybe if you're selling a high value service, do it maybe at the end of the first meeting, maybe towards the second meeting. Typically, when clients work with us, they're invested X and Y. How does that fit within your plans? Or they'll put this in to get this out. They'll invest this amount to get this sort of return. How does that fit with your budgets or plans or commercial opportunities? Give them that question and see what answer you get back. You'll be amazed at the response and the reaction. But deal with it. What I will definitely say to you is, if you are listening to this, and by the way, if it's not a budget figure, it might be rates. You might charge a percentage rate. It might well be that you charge a non-fixed fee. It might be that it's a margin that you've got to make. I don't know, but the point being is, adjust the question I used around typically between X and Y for your services. Typically, people that work with us, invest between 0 and 0.8% and 1.2% of their funds. That's the figure. Or they give that range question based upon whether it's you on rates or margin, but give a figure so that you can work with people on that and see what reaction you get. Watch the reactions. So look, that's what the points around the budget issue. Definitely deal with it. It's a key thing to solve. Otherwise, you'll waste a lot of time and energy and emotion. I don't want you to do that. And if you get this one right, let me know how you get on. Let me know what works. Reach out to me. Tell me if you've used these phrases and it's got you a result. Let me know. I'd love to know that it's making the impact for you that I want it to. So as I always try and do on the podcast, I always try and finish on an inspirational story. And I just wanted to share the story. Again, I've always said I'm running out of inspirational stories, so please keep them coming if you've got some that you can share. But I wanted to share a story of a lady called Bronnie Ware actually today. And Bronnie Ware, if you haven't ever heard about her, I think she's Australian, is a nurse who was involved in palliative care. So palliative care, sadly, when people have there's no cure for them, and it's a managing the best of their life through to when they sadly pass away. And she wrote this incredible book of, and she had these interviews with all these people that she was talking to who were dying sadly. And she wrote this brilliant book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I won't share all of the 5 regrets. You should have a look at the book to see it all. But I'm just inspired by that story of how a lady who's doing a brilliant job as a nurse within very difficult circumstances as people are coming to the end of their lives can turn that sad situation into something that's inspirational. And the first 2, for example, in the top 5 regrets that she talks about when she asks these people on their dying deathbed, what are the regrets that they've got? 2 of them are, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. And the second one was, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And sometimes I have to think about that because, I love my work, but I love what I do. But, I love that first one. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. And I think, have a look at, search for Bronnie Ware for the other 3. But I guess the inspirational story for me is when people are, for her to create that from those difficult times, but when people are going through those moments as we pass this life and they're thinking, it makes me think a lot of the time, actually, wow, that's maybe what I've got to think about. What are the things that I can do, and how can I live a life that's true to myself and do the things that, I need to do to spend time with loved ones rather than just working. So that's inspiration for me. I hope it gives you a bit of inspiration today as well. Bronnie Ware, the top 5 regrets of the dying. Have a look at the book. It's a sad one, but a brilliant one, and a story that I think can inspire us all. So that's it from this week. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. If you have, please like it, share it, tell other people about it, especially this one. We're talking about pricing. Share it with people if you think, I know someone that could benefit from this. Send it across to them. But until next week, thank you so much. Have a brilliant week. Stay safe and see you then. Take care.